Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a quick review on the Remington Model 700 chambered in 308. If you like what you see, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, don't forget about the bell, and please leave a comment below. Thanks for stopping by. And before we get started, we'll just take a quick look. And do the safety check. You can see no round inside the chamber and the bolts all the way to the rear. So this gun is clear. This rifle belongs to my friend, and as you can see, it has the composite stock with the green and black coloring. The texture is not exactly smooth. It's not exactly rough either. It does feel good in your hand for the amount of texture that's on it, but it's not like a grip on a pistol or anything. So you can't describe it as smooth, but you also can't describe it as rough either. And then this one has a butt pad on the back. It's nice and squishy. The 308's got an alright amount of snap to it. Anybody familiar with the 308 would know. The butt pad is more along the lines of for a long day at the range. I'll go ahead and show you what the stock pad looks like. And this rifle was bought used, so the stock pad is a little bit worn out. And after putting a good 100 rounds or so down range, you know, your shoulder's going to be sore. So my friend went ahead and got himself a butt pad. And there's what the original looks like. And you can see that's not going to offer you much relief 100 rounds later. And the bolt and the barrel on this one are the stainless steel. You can see the little checker pattern or honeycomb pattern right there. You can see where it says 308 made in New York. And I don't know exactly how long the barrel is. Sorry, I didn't look into that before I started doing the video. I like the muzzle brake. It's pretty standard, pretty classic, but if you look real close, you can see the design from the barrel lines right up with the design on the muzzle brake. And then as we come back down, you can see the same design. If I can get you some good light, same design is on the internal part of the bolt. I think it just makes it look for a nice aesthetic on the rifle. Gives it a different look. I still like the classic black, but this one's pretty good. And just a short review on the scope. I don't know very much about scopes, so we'll just go through this real quick. This one's a Spike, and it's a 624 by 50, and it's AOL. So I don't know what AOL means, but anybody out there that knows scopes better than me, which is pretty much anyone, should know what that means. You know, it's got your focus ring on the front and on the back rather, and on the front it's got your yardage. This one's labeled up to 150, and then it's got the little infinity sign right there, or double zeros, whatever you want to call it. It has the knob for the rented green light. The battery's dead in this, and my friend doesn't really like using the red and green light, and I don't care enough to put a battery in it. And then it's got the pretty standard knobs for, you know, your windage and your elevation. I like the scope because you can see the impact, especially with the 308 round. You can see the impact at the 200-yard target, which is good for us because, you know, it helps us figure out where we're shooting at. We don't always have large targets. Sometimes we put small targets out. Some of the friends at the range give us the advice, you know, shoot small, hit small, and they say that we're putting too big of targets out. And I can see what they mean, because as we get better, you know, the bigger target is kind of pointless. We don't need as much room, but when we haven't taken it out for a while, it's good to have a bigger target so we can see where the bullets are landing. But anyway, it's a Spike scope, and it's an AOL, so if anybody knows what the AOL means, maybe you could leave that down in the comment section. And let's go ahead and move on. It has a pretty standard bipod on it. I don't know the brand. It was on the rifle when my friend bought it. The one thing that I do notice about this one is it's got the pull-out pegs, and I'll show you the legs. Each all have grooves cut in them, and then the bipod that I use is a little bit different. It's got the wheels on it that you have to unspin, and then you can pull out the legs and put them back where you want them. The way these operate, where you pull the little peg out, I like better because it's faster. It's easier to use in and out real quick, change back and forth. The thing I don't like is the notches cut determine where the stop marks are going to be. Where this one here, I can take it out and put it back in as far as I want. If I want to move it a 1/16 of an inch, I can. If I want to move it a whole inch, I can. There's no limitations to this one. But we'll go ahead and show you the way this one operates. Okay, with this one, you push in the button and then bring it out until it stops and hits another groove. And then you can see those grooves cut in the legs. They all determine how far your scopes or your bipod's going to move. So that would be the one downside that I would say to this bipod is, and it moves real easy. You can see I'm doing it with one hand. That would be the one takeaway from this bipod as opposed to my other one, is you're limited to the range of movement. But with the button, I do feel it's a whole lot easier to use. So I guess it really comes down to personal preference and I guess how it performs on the range. And we do have a trigger safety. Right now it's in the fire position, and then just a quick flick down, quick flick back up from safe to fire. When it's on fire, obviously you can pull the trigger. When it's on safe, the trigger won't pull. This bolt is one of my favorite bolts. It's super smooth, very easy to use, and I mean it's just a real clean ride in and out. And I'm shaking it all around, so I apologize for the camera work. But out of all the bolt action rifles that I've shot, this one's probably at the top of the list for ease of use. And once again, it looks really cool, and the non-traditional black, you know, the stainless finish. And then we'll go ahead and move down to the trigger. The trigger on this rifle is probably the most unique thing about it. This is what I call, and some of you may have heard me say it before, this is a think about it trigger. And what I mean by that is, as soon as you think about it, this gun's going off. When a first time shooter, meaning the first time they've shot this rifle, sits down behind it, as soon as they pull the trigger for the first time, they always look back and say, I wasn't expecting that. And we'll go ahead and show you what the action looks like. First, real quick, the well is pretty standard, I would assume. Looks about standard to me, whatever standard might be, I guess, these days. The way I look at it is, here in Maryland, it's pretty cold during the winter, and we shoot in the mornings, and it's an outdoor range, so I like to shoot with gloves on because my hands get cold. You know, so what? I'm not a tough guy. And even a big heavy-duty winter glove will fit in there. I wouldn't recommend shooting this one with the heavy-duty glove, because as soon as the material or the glove starts going inside that well, it's going to set the trigger off. So if you have like a work glove, you know, a grease monkey glove or whatever you could get from Walmart, or not Walmart, Home Depot, or just your basic everyday keep your fingers warm kind of glove would be fine. But the bigger, heavier winter gloves, I really wouldn't recommend with this trigger. So let's go ahead and, actually before we go, that little knob right there that you can see right here is what releases the internal well for the internal magazine well, and we'll talk about that again in just a minute here. So let's go ahead and go through the rifle. It's already the action's already been cycled, so I'll be quiet so you can see and hear this. And I'll do it one more time. Try to get a... As you can see, the trigger barely moves and it fires. If it's a pound, then I'd be surprised. I don't know the science behind all the triggers, so if there is a such thing as less than a pound trigger, that's probably it. The more experienced trigger guys are probably watching this saying, no, there's no such thing as a pound. I don't know that, but it's super fun to shoot. It takes no effort. Getting used to it was the hardest part, because when you sit down behind it and you don't expect the trigger to go off and you stick your finger in the well and it goes, well, you're not gonna hit what you're aiming at. So now that we've fired this rifle well over 100 rounds. We've gotten used to it, and I actually like the softness of it because I still have the problem with the barrel dancing when I'm aiming 200 yards, and this allows me to time it a little bit better, or when I get my breathing under control and I get the barrel still, it doesn't take a whole lot of pull on that trigger to get a shot off, where some of my other rifles, well, the barrel's dancing and I'm trying to figure it out, then I have to put a lot of aggressive pressure on the trigger. I feel like it pulls my shot off sometimes. But anyway, that's a think about it trigger. We buy most of our ammo at Walmart, and this is the 150 grain. We also shoot the 180 grain. Excuse me, it could be 185. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's 180 grain. I don't notice any difference in the recoil or the accuracy. I'm not a ballistics expert, so it's just my experience. We also just shoot paper targets, so we don't have to worry about any kind of, hunting ballistics or taking down a deer or a hog or anything. So in my experience, the 180 grain and the 150 grain are basically the same. One thing I do want to talk about with ammo is the subsonic stuff, so let me show you that. I'm not trying to knock any company, so if Amalgamated Cartridges is a company that you like, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but we bought this at a gun show here in Maryland, one of our local gun shows, and I wouldn't recommend it. The subsonic reloads were very, very poorly performing. We basically just wasted this box just to get rid of it after the first, say, 5 rounds we put through it. With the 180 grain and the 150 grain, we're on target and fairly decent groups at 200 yards, 100 yards, even 50. When we were loading this stuff up, we couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with it. It did not perform well. It sounded a whole lot different coming out of the rifle. We've also bought some factory subsonic stuff, which performed fine. There was nothing wrong with it at all. So my recommendation is, unless you have a friend that reloads and you really trust them, don't buy reloaded subsonic ammo. And that's just my 2 cents on that. Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to talk about was this magazine well. So we'll go ahead and push the button, and you see the magazine well drop down. The first time my friend dropped that magazine well, and what did I do with it? Let me put you on pause real quick. Okay, sorry about that. I had to find the piece. The first time he dropped the well down, this came out. Now, we know it came out of there. This holds 5 rounds inside the well. When we put this in there, it doesn't feed. You can get the first fire in, and then when you eject and go to feed again, it won't pick up the next round. And it also doesn't load properly. Like the rounds don't stack in there like they're supposed to. The guy he bought the gun from said he didn't know where this came from or why it was in there. It almost looks like, where's it at? See if I can show you. Give me a second. Sorry about all the camera work, but it looks just like that plate that's already in there. So I don't know. We took it out, and now we just load 1 round at a time, and it cycles through just fine. So if anybody knows if this plate is supposed to be in there, or if this is just an extra plate that got stuck in it somehow, any ideas or tips or anything, let me know. Other than that, this is a beautiful rifle, shoots fantastic, and it's a super fun time at the range. And it doesn't hurt that it looks really cool either. So that's my review. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Thanks for stopping by.